everybody. Great. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much, Linda, for joining us from Sweden. We really appreciate it. A little bit of context about this webinar. We're going to do a quick introduction. We'll take about 45 minutes for a Q&A between myself and Every Kid Outdoor and Linda. And then we'll have about 10 minutes open up for Q&A for participants. And so you are welcome to either type your questions in the chat that we can address at the end of the interview, or you can turn on your camera and your microphone and ask the questions virtually. For now, though, as Linda and I are chatting, please keep your microphone and your camera off. So, quick introduction about Utah's Every Kid Outdoors. Utah's Every Kid Outdoors is an initiative aimed at empowering Utah's children to spend time outside. We are part of the Division of Outdoor Recreation, and we are a part of Utah's Department of Natural Resources. And what that means is we are a state-run entity. And we launched this version of our program in 2025. Our first approach was focusing on parents and families through the Adventure Challenge. And as we grow the program, we're working to collaborate with educators and community leaders to empower even more kids to spend time in nature. And that is part of the reason why we were having a conversation with Linda. So Linda, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and about the book we're going to be talking about, There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather?
Yes, hi, and thank you so much for inviting me to chat here today. I appreciate it. Yeah, I grew up in Sweden, in a very nature-based culture, and a childhood very rich in outdoor play. Spent, hours outside in preschool and at school, and at home as well. Grew up skiing and ice skating in the wintertime with my family and hiking and camping in the summertime. And still, my family would never call themselves outdoorsy by any means. They were just being Swedish. So then when I was in my 20s, I met an American and I moved to the US with him and we started a family, lived in Indiana. And what I encountered was a bit of a culture clash where I noticed that my outdoorsy ways were not the norm. So what I saw was that childhood had moved indoors. I saw children spending all day long indoors, both at school and also at home, glued to screens and very few people recreating outdoors. And this was common all year round, but especially in the winter time when it seemed like everybody was sort of hibernating. And I had people, and so I just sort of doubled down on my upbringing with the Scandinavian culture, and I kept taking my kids outdoors, and I had some funny reactions to when I took my daughter out for walks in freezing weather in the stroller. I had some people call me brave, and there were others who thought I was being reckless because they thought it was dangerous for her to be outside. And then I had a third group who took pity on me and offered me rides because they thought my car had broken down. And so that's essentially what sort of made me realize that there was a story there. I wanted to tell the story about, with childhood in Scandinavia. I also read Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, and he's been a great inspiration to me. I figured if I could take the wisdom of Richard Louv and his book and put it into more of a parenting context, I thought that I could perhaps inspire other families around the world who wanted the same thing for their families because I knew I couldn't be alone in this. Because when I talked to older Americans, they all told me the same thing. We used to play outdoors when we were little too. We used to be outside till the street lights came on. And so the journalist in me wanted to find out what had happened. Why did childhood move indoors, and could the Nordic countries be of inspiration to others who wanted to see that in the U.S.? So that's
Yeah.
essentially the background to me writing the book from the beginning.
Well, thank you, Linda. And for the people who have recently joined, we will have a 10-minute Q&A at the end of our conversation. So if you have questions, know that you'll have a chance to answer them at that time. And, one of the things that I loved about your book is that it had this combination of research. You talked about being a journalist and also vulnerable storytelling, this bit of a memoir. And how did you know that that type of storytelling would be the perfect complement and also a tool that would empower parents to say, oh, you know what? Based on this well-researched information and this vulnerable storytelling, I think I can do it too. I think I can spend time outside.
I think what I was looking to do was to speak to parents from a parent's point of view. I thought that would be the most effective way to show them that this is, that your culture and society may tell you one thing, but by telling my story the way I did, it was a way for me to show that, well, there is another way. Actually, there are a lot of different ways. I mean, parenting is not, yeah, there are a lot of different cultures in the world, and we all want the best for our children. And I think we can all learn from each other. And this is an area where I think the Nordic countries have a really strong track record. So I figured by combining, but I also didn't want it to be just about me and my story, because frankly, I mean, I didn't think that would be enough. I didn't think that would be enough to make the story powerful enough. So I knew I wanted the research in there, but I wanted to present it in a way that was accessible to people and put it into practice and also show just through practical examples, what this is how we deal with things in Sweden. Because a lot of people, I think parenting today, it's almost a contact sport. I mean, it's easy to become judged, and nobody. I think there's a lot of fear and anxiety around that. People are trying to do their best, but then there are so many opinions about what to do, what you should and shouldn't do, and so I think for me, it was always easy to choose the outdoor play route because that's how I was raised. That's what all my friends were doing back in Sweden. That's what all of society is supporting over there. So I had that support, and I figured by writing this book the way I did, maybe I could be that support to somebody who feels alone in their parenting decisions in the US. Because that's how I felt very lonely initially when I was a new mom in the US, and everything just felt so foreign, and I felt like I was doing everything so differently. So yeah, so that's why that's why I thought the format would work, and I think it did.
Yeah, it really did. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the really well-cited research in the book. And some of the research, these findings were in 2015, so it's been about a decade. But at that time, that research indicated that US children were 6 times more likely to be obese as children in Sweden and 2 times as likely to be overweight. Additionally, it had stats that were 11% of the US children have been diagnosed with ADHD versus a 3 to 6% in Sweden. So these are pretty big differences in, first of all, obesity and weight, and then also in some cognitive things going on as well. So in your opinion, how does the free loot sleeve lifestyle decrease the occurrences of these diseases in Sweden? And then on the flip side, what are your suggestions for US parents to embrace the free sleeve lifestyle?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so obviously with overweight and obesity, we know that diet plays a big part, and that was not a focus area of my book, but I think in general, well, I do talk, excuse me, I do talk about school lunches a little bit, and I think in general, in Scandinavia, I think that children eat less processed food, less fatty foods, and so on. But from the perspective of outdoor play, what we've seen in studies is that children who play outdoors regularly, um, for example, children at forest schools where they spend almost all day outside, they typically have lower BMIs, more healthier BMIs than children at traditional preschools where they are mostly indoors. And we know that kids are more physically active when they're allowed to play outdoors, and that can help prevent obesity. So yeah, so from that perspective, I think an outdoor lifestyle is definitely a healthy choice. And as far as ADHD goes, um, there is I should mention, since you said it's been about 10 years since I started researching the book, and that's where the studies were from. And since then, Sweden has experienced a little bit of an increase in diagnoses. It's not clear why, but some reasons that I've seen is that it's less considered less stigmatized today, and that the criteria for a diagnosis have changed as well, and possibly also because it is having that diagnosis is linked to getting extra support from the school system. But all that said, what we can say about outdoor play, we can't say that outdoor play, let your kid play outdoors and they won't get ADHD. That's not what we that's not what I'm trying to say. But what studies have shown is that being outdoors can alleviate the symptoms of ADHD. We see that after having recess, children are more relaxed, and at the same time, they have an ability to focus better, and even score better at tests, actually. So what happens when we go outside is that our cortisol levels drop. Cortisol is a hormone that's associated with the stress symptoms, and um, so that's I think one of the reasons why we feel calmer, but we're still alert when we're outdoors. So there are several studies on this where we can see this link where being outdoors helps children focus, and especially children with ADHD, and so it makes it easier to manage for sure. And for families who want to incorporate friluftsliv, and now that you mentioned it a few times, I failed to explain earlier what that is, but that was an important part of my upbringing in Sweden, is friluftsliv, or open air life, as we translate it to in English. And that is essentially, it's a philosophy that revolves around connecting children with, or just connecting with nature in everyday life. That something that it's a philosophy that is sort of passed down from generation to generation. And my general advice for that, and we'll get into that more later, I think, is that try to incorporate it in your daily life, so that families don't think that every outing has to be like this epic adventure, but to just keep it in make it a part of your daily rhythm. So whether whatever that is, and whatever opportunities that you get to be outside with your kids in everyday life.
Yeah, I also love the concept that it's, not competitive. in Utah, there can be a lot of competition around spending time outside, around skiing big lines or climbing these routes. And so it's so refreshing to think about spending time outside simply to be out there, not for any stat, not to accomplish any big goal or whatever. It's simply to be out
Yeah.
there and incorporate it into everyday life. I think that's so refreshing. And, you know, you touched a little bit on, how exercise during unstructured free play outdoors. First of all, children get more exercise when they're doing unstructured free play outdoors versus organized sports. And obviously that's important for BMI to help with obesity and things like that. But can you provide some context or suggestion for American parents on how to prioritize unstructured outdoor time? And as you do that, kind of thinking about, deviating from the US cultural norm of valuing an extremely busy schedule, because to have that unstructured free play, there also has to be space in the schedule for it. And as you talked about a lot in the book, sometimes that isn't the case for kids, also for adults. So I'd love to hear some ideas from you about how American parents can kind of deviate from the norm and prioritize that time for their kids and themselves.
Yeah, I think maybe part of it is a marketing problem because I think outdoor play is so immensely beneficial to children in terms of their physical and mental health, cognitive development, their development of social skills, and so on. It really helps shape the whole child. And still, it is massively undervalued in US culture, I think. It's often talked about as if it's just a waste of time, but in fact, it's anything but. I mean, it is really key to children's health and development. So, so I was quite surprised when I came to the U.S. and I realized that there was a whole different culture. That it was almost like a badge of honor to be busy all the time. That it was part of this like intensive parenting culture, I think, which I don't think has been around in the US forever either. I mean, this is something that we've seen in the past, getting stronger in the past generation. And part of it is that the US is a more competitive society, and that's, it's trickling down to our children. But I think that the fact that the free, unstructured play is so beneficial is a strong argument for really making space for it. And like I said earlier, I had a different cultural background. So for me, it was easy to justify not signing my kids up for all these activities. I didn't actually sign them up for anything, well, except baby swim. I take that back. But until they were old enough to like really ask for it themselves, then because part of it was also that I wanted to, I really enjoyed us spending time outdoors as a family together and just being in nature and not feeling this pressure to achieve or compete. And I think, I mean, my message to families is simply that you have the power to shape your family culture. And, if you try to think ahead 20 years from now, like what are the memories that you're creating now? Is it that you're always busy, you're just like hustling and acting as a chauffeur, driving your kid from one activity to the next, and you're always frazzled? Or do you want to remember like quiet days at the park or just leisurely get-togethers with friends and I don't know, cooking over an open fire, things like that? Um, I don't know. I mean, I think we decide for ourselves how we want our family life to look like, and I think maybe my books or my at least my first book really helps them empower parents to make those kinds of decisions for themselves.
Yeah. Well, and two of the main characters in your first book are your daughters.
Yeah.
Maya and Nora, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes.
Yeah. And they, when you were writing the book, they were about 8 and 4. I think maybe Nora turned 5, something like that. They were pretty young. And
Yeah.
it's been about 10 years. So you emailed now, they're 17 and 14. So they're teenagers now. In what ways are you witnessing, the fruits of that effort, and the effort being cultivating the time outside as a family, having unrushed time outside? And certainly you were candid that not all the time it was easy to convince your daughters to go outside. There was, certainly times of struggle. There was times they wanted to be inside. There was times they wanted to be on their tablet. And it wasn't always a easy thing to convince them to go outside. You really had to push for it. But now they're teenagers, and are you witnessing some fruits of your effort? And do you have words of encouragement for parents with young children who want to begin exploring nature about, hey, this effort now might result in this kind of effect down the road?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I do get this question a lot because obviously people are curious to find out, well, what happened? What happened then? Like 10 years down the road. And all I can say is, I mean, there's not a recipe where, if you do A, if you do A, then you will get B 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
And I will say that having teenagers, it's a little bit, in some respects, it's almost like returning to the toddler years because you have uh, kids who are now very opinionated about what they want to do with their time, and you can't just like dress them and lift them out there and say, "Hey, we're going outside." It's they're on the road to adulthood now, and they're craving more and more independence and freedom, which I totally understand. I get that. I've been a teenager myself. I think it's a normal part of their development to some extent resist what the parent wants them to do. But the beauty of it is that when you create this foundation, a childhood that is rooted in nature, they will carry that with them for the rest of their lives. And I know that even if it ebbs, and it's going to ebb and flow throughout their life, but they will always know that nature is there for them in the good times and the hard times. And that's how it was for me. And I know it's going to be like that for them too. And I can still see it. It's just that, and they still enjoy the outdoors and nature, but in their own way. It's more on their terms now. So I can see it in my youngest daughter. She likes to go trail running, but she likes to go by herself. She doesn't want to go camping with me right now. She's chosen a different path, and that's fine, And then I mean, just a few years ago, we summited the highest mountain in Sweden together, and I'm so grateful of that memory. But I also have to respect that that's not her priorities right now. And then my oldest daughter, she loves bird watching and all sorts of wildlife. She even rescued like a baby bird a couple of years ago and nurtured it until she could set it free again. And she dreams of becoming a marine biologist. So I think that they have been influenced in profound ways. But they it's on their terms now, and they have to choose their path, and I'm okay with that. They're practicing becoming adults, and nature will always be there for them. So I think as a parent, the advice I would give is to play the long game. I mean, um, it's gonna be tough sometimes, and you may not see the fruits of your labor immediately or even in a few years. But I think you're not going to regret spending the time to get your kids outside. And so just go out and do it. Start where you are and use what you have and do what you can. That's a piece of advice I always give parents.
Oh, lovely. And Thank you for that. And it's helpful to think about the long game and also for that respective individual choice that, everybody's experience with nature is going to be different. And so that, of course, is going to be true for children, especially as they grow up. And, I want to shift a little bit of one of the focuses in the book is about stewardship. And actually, one of the initiatives of Utah's Every Kid Outdoors is to cultivate a sense of stewardship and awe for surroundings here in Utah for Utah kids. But one of the things I thought was so cool was in Sweden, environmental consciousness and stewardship are part of the school curriculum. And while that might not be overarching case here in the US, I think there are a lot of individual parents and educators who are aiming to foster a sense of stewardship among American children. And what advice would you give them to help cultivate that sense of, wonder and stewardship?
Yeah, so I think this is such an important part about outdoor play and nature connection, and a lot of people, a lot of interviewers don't raise this question. So I'm glad that you do. So first of all, I think the most important thing to think about is that that to connect a child with nature, to let them love nature is that's the most important part in all of this. Give them a chance to attach to the place so that they can carry it in their hearts. Um, and secondly, I think age-appropriate environmental education is also really important, and it doesn't have to be like you don't have to be an expert yourself as a parent. I think you just have to be willing to get a child out there and discover alongside with them. I've been very inspired by the Scandinavian forest schools and their approach to learning, and that is that they don't see the preschool teachers there. They don't call themselves teachers, but co-discoverers or guides. And I really like that because it's about learning, going out there and discovering things together. So, but I also do think that it's important to get to know your local flora and fauna. I think we need to put names on things. I think many kids today know more about um, exotic animals in Africa than their local wildlife, and the same probably goes for a lot of adults. So, and that's something that I felt pretty uh, deeply when I moved to the U.S. and I didn't recognize a lot of the birds and the flowers in my backyard. And it was a sense of I experienced a sense of loss. So I actually took my daughters out there and we learned together some of the common flowers and birds as well. So so yeah, I think you can like integrate that and um, also do some different, you can do some simple activities that really um, gets the kids thinking as well. I did something with my daughter, youngest one, when she was 4. I did something called Does It Belong in Nature? And it was very simple. It was just, we were in the woods behind our house, and I would place some things that didn't belong in nature, and I would place them, and then she would go and find them. It was almost like a little treasure hunt, and she loved that game so much that she made me do it like over and over again. And of course, we picked everything up afterwards, but yeah, so she just loved that, and I think children are wired like that. I mean, they know that it's wrong to litter, for example, and they want to be helpers. They want to pick things up. So that's just one thing that you can do. And then as they get older, then the conversation can shift more towards different challenges that the planet is facing right now, and you can I often quote Jane Goodall. She's another big inspiration of mine. she's always said you can't go through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. And what you do makes a difference, and you just have to choose what kind of difference you want to make, something like that. And that impact is something that we talk about daily, and how we can minimize our footprint on this earth. And Black Friday is coming up. Well, that's a reason to talk about limiting consumption, and or buying used things, recycling, and eating plant-based food, and using public transit, things like that. So those are conversations that are ongoing in our home. That the decisions that we make each day, they all add up. So, and they also watch me write and speak about these issues. So I hope that in some way I can be a role model from that respect.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned, I've recognized this in my own life. I wrote a regional guidebook about hiking in Salt Lake. And when I was doing the research, I began to learn the names of all the plants. And what happened is as I learned the name of the plants, I felt like this deep connection to them. And so as a parent or an educator, sparking that research in yourself is certainly a great way to then share that with children in your life, because it is empowering to learn the names of the species that you share that region with. So I think that's a really good perspective. And I'm going to shift again a little bit, because one of the things in your book that I found so interesting was two studies, or two examples of people visiting from, I'm not sure if it was Sweden or somewhere in Scandinavia, and they had left their child outside to nap and went inside. And both of these people were then subsequently arrested. And there is this huge different perspective about children having an opportunity to play outside. And there was another example of kids who were walking to their community park, and child protective services were called on their parents. And so there's an opportunity to shift the thinking about what makes an area safe. And so, do you have any steps for American families to create an environment that's safe for unsupervised outdoor play? And then, those examples for people who haven't read the book are in juxtaposition of, this culture in Sweden where, yeah, children walk to the playground by themselves. Kids are outdoors bicycling. There's this real not afraidness of nature and of kids spending time outside. So, do you have any tips
Mhm.
for American families? What steps can they take to help create an environment that is safe for unsupervised outdoor play?
Right. I do think that the good Samaritans who tend to call the police is, when they see an unsupervised child, yeah, they're certainly not helping the conversation about um, parenting today. And I do think it's a legitimate fear that a lot of people have today, that they will get in trouble. But they should also know that there is help. There is help. There are organizations like Lenore Skenazy's Let Grow, that support parents who do give their kids freedom to play outdoors, unsupervised. And another option for, if you do have that fear, it could be, I think we need to build up our communities too, where it used to be that maybe one adult was out and there would be a gaggle of kids running around, and at least one adult would sort of keep an eye on them. Um, I think what if you have a house too, with a little backyard or something, what you can do is to invite the neighborhood kids over. Make sure that your home is a place where other kids feel welcome and want to come play outdoors. And And there are a lot of different initiatives that I've seen too. In some communities, they have like maybe 1 day a week or 1 day a month where they close off a street and they just let kids they turn it over to kids to ride their bikes and whatever play soccer or whatever. And so there's a lot of inspiration to be had. But to touch a little broader on the idea of risk and outdoor play, I do think that, or rather, unsupervised outdoor play is a form of it's one of the categories of risky play as researchers have defined. And so, and some of the others are like play at big heights or at high speeds, using tools, dangerous tools like knives and axes, things like that. Dangerous play by dangerous elements like fire and water. And and I think we need to recognize that there are, with again, a lot of benefits to the child in terms of learning executive function, risk assessment, um, learning how to regulate emotion, problem solve, and they can gain a tremendous amount of confidence and grit and resilience playing freely outdoors. And I think those traits are really the secret sauce to success in life, and that's why it's so important to give kids this freedom. And I think we also need to differentiate between risk and hazard, because risk is something that kids can foresee, and it's something that they can manage, whereas a hazard is something potentially dangerous that they can't see coming.
Mhm.
And um, so what we do in Sweden is that we give kids freedom with responsibility, which means that we gradually give them more freedom as we see that they gain, the ability to judge risk. We see that they are responsible. Then we give them more and more freedom to play unsupervised. And you can do this just go in baby steps. Like for example, you're at the playground with a younger child, and instead of hovering close by, ready to grab them if they are about to fall, as they get older and you can see that they got things under control, you can gradually move a little farther and farther away and challenge yourself if you feel fearful. And also, I think it's important to remember that it is kids' jobs to push our boundaries and to make us gasp sometimes when they climb high up in a tree. It's normal, and they need to do that. I mean, it is good for their development. So. Uh, I think also as an adult, what you can do is you can do like a simple risk assessment. Where's your child going to go? What are they going to do? What yeah, what are the potential risks? And is there a high likelihood of it happening, or is it a low likelihood? And are the consequences mild, or are they severe? So. And eventually that's something that your child will learn to think about too. Maybe not in organized steps like that, but they will think of it. So for example, if traffic is an issue, then you would identify that as an issue, and then the way to mitigate that would be to maybe to walk your child to the park the first few times, and so that you learn, so that they can learn and see, how you're supposed to act in traffic until they're confident and safe enough to go by themselves.
Yeah. Oh, I love those suggestions. Thank you. I think that it's a really good idea to have constructive questions that can really help to lead to real answers. Is this a genuine risk or is this a perceived risk? And then sharing those questions with your kids and encouraging them to ask that type of questions as well. That's a great tool to use to kind of overcome this fear around kids playing outside. And one of the things I want to think about is with Every Kid Outdoors, our mission is to connect every child in Utah with time outside. And a big part of that, falls on the families. And there are families in Utah, like all over the world, who face a lot of hurdles, like, for example, living in dense urban environments without access to transportation, where there might not even be a park walkable nearby. Or, maybe they don't have the means to purchase the high quality outdoor clothing. Or, for example, the caregivers, especially in the winter months, caregivers might work all day. They might leave in the dark and get home in the dark. You know, or additionally, specifically in Salt Lake area, there's geographical concerns about poor air quality. So that's a lot of concepts, Linda. Please don't feel like you have to address all of them, but kind of just generally thinking about, parents and caregivers who really do face genuine hurdles to getting outside. Do you have any tips you can offer, families to address, one or a few of those hurdles?
That's a lot of different challenges to unpack there,
Yeah.
but yeah, just in general, like what I can say is, I mean, obviously all children deserve and need outdoor play. I mean, regardless of their background and or where they live, we need equal access, and we know that's not the case today. Um, so I think this is where I think the village comes in. I mean, I do think I often talk about how we need how it takes a village to create to raise an outdoor loving child. And I mean, we have a lot of parents working full time today, and a lot of times, the child spends a big part of their day outside of the home, whether that's at a babysitter's or the school or a preschool, something like that. And that's why we need to sort of to spread this to educate about outdoor play across the board, and get, I think the school system has a really important part to play here. And we saw during the pandemic that a lot of schools moved some of their teaching outdoors, and across the board, there was a lot more outdoor time for kids. And unfortunately, I think some of the school, or maybe most schools, have now reverted to what they were doing before pre-pandemic. But I do think I think educators have a great role to play here. If they can try to promote more outdoor time at their schools, could there be like a school garden? What are the recess policies? A lot of schools lack a recess policy, but that's a really important way for a lot of children to get outside. School is the place where most kids are, and so the school can really help here, and also during winter time. So, for example, that you mentioned clothing. We know not all families can afford the right gear, and maybe the school can help here. It can help organize like a clothing swap day, or maybe they could even have some clothes on hand, or organize a coat drive, keep some hats and gloves on hand, for example. So I do think that the schools can be instrumental. I also think that parents can help each other. Maybe you can take turns getting the kids outside. Maybe if you had like an outdoor play group, that way there wouldn't be so much pressure on each parent, but you
Yeah.
can take turns. Um, And as far as weather goes, I think you can usually find ways of working around that, even if it is air quality. I think as a general rule, I think you can always get outside for a little bit. I mean, obviously pay attention to what the weather advisories say, but as a in general, I think you can at least go outside for a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And we have some really good questions, Linda. I know we talked
Yeah.
about leaving 10 minutes, but I kind of would like to leave a little bit more time, which means maybe we won't address a couple of the questions we originally talked about. Are you okay with that, to
Yeah,
transitioning
sure.
to answering some of these? Because we
Yeah.
have some really awesome questions. And so, thank you. The first winner of one of Linda's books is Jen. And Jen asks, what advice do you give for parents who desperately want to provide this lifestyle for their child and their own work schedule and the fact that they live in a city make it hard to do this? We kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe this will give
Hmm.
me an opportunity to expand a little. And she has a
Right.
follow up that says, I have an all or nothing approach, and sometimes I need just a few pointers to start the process and how to overcome the exhaustion from work to actually facilitate this.
Yes. I would recommend like setting a goal then of getting outside for a little bit every day, even if you just start with 15 minutes. That can grow over time and try to make it as convenient as possible for to make it work with your schedule. So whether that is if it's possible to walk to school or if it's possible to stop by a park on the way home and make that part of your daily rhythm and just play for a little bit, or if it's going for a walk around the neighborhood after dinner. And I know it can be uh, a hurdle, just that motivation, finding that motivation when you're already tired from work and all you want to do is just sink down on the couch and not go outside. At least I can say personally that I've never regretted going outside, pushing through. I think sometimes getting out the door is the hardest part, and once you're out there, then you will feel rewarded. So that would be that would be my advice.
Yeah, that's lovely. And from the all or nothing perspective, sometimes I think like you said, like maybe making that walk around the block the win. And that instead,
Yeah.
instead of that, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation how it's almost what did you say? Like parenting can be combative almost. And there's
Yeah.
like, like this competition. So maybe embracing like a non-competitive approach to that. Um, 10
Yeah.
minutes. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, and also if you do live in the city, I think it's important to to appreciate the nature that you do have nearby, because we think of nature as being pristine wilderness, but nature is present everywhere, even in the city. So do take some time just to observe the clouds or hug a tree or listen to the bird song. I mean, you can find that in any city.
Yeah, totally. And the next question is from Lori. Congratulations. You are the second person to win a copy of Linda's book, Lori. And her question is for adults whose kids are grown and routines are established. Do you have advice, for grown-ups who no longer have youngsters for
Mm.
rediscovering and reconnecting with the outdoors?
Yeah, I think trying to find like an activity that everybody enjoys and that you can go and do like on vacations together if that's how you mainly get together. I mean, I could see how, I mean, among my friends, I mean, a lot of us get together either at a cabin with our parents, or we go, well, my parents are too old now, but we would go skiing together. So, for example, because that's an activity that everybody likes. And obviously, if you haven't done that as you're, when you're young, that might not be something that you start later. But I mean, there are all sorts of those are just examples. I mean, the idea is to try and um, find an activity that everybody enjoys and try to get together around that and do whatever that is.
Thank you, Linda. And our third question is from Brianna. Congratulations, Brianna. You also want a copy of Linda's book. And Brianna asks, I know parents have the biggest impacts on their kids. So if the parents are excited about going outside, the kids will be excited as well. So, what are some ways or ideas parents can get more interested in going outside?
Hmm. Well, I is that assuming that they aren't interested from the beginning? It almost or just showing interest. I my way of doing it, if I'm not, if I mean, because there are always times when I haven't been terribly motivated myself, but I know I want to get out because I know it's good for my kids, and at that point I just fake it till we make it. So I I just go with it, and I I'm excited, or at least that's what I show the kids. And once once outside, I think as an adult to I think it's just really key to try and see the world through a child's eye. I mean, there's so much that you can uh, get excited about outdoors. I think children are easily, awed by the natural world. They have such a great sense of wonder, and as adults, we tend to get jaded over time. We fail to see all the ordinary miracles that children see in nature, and I think, yeah, I think trying to see the world through their eyes and see what they get excited about, and just try to um, enjoy that too, get our own sense of wonder back. I think
Mm,
that can really help a lot of adults, um, strengthen their own relationship with nature.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much value in finding something that you actually like to do. And that can definitely spark the joy and interest in your child. So that's a great perspective. And the fourth question we have is from Sarah. Sarah, you have won a copy of the book. Thank you. And Sarah says, we are an all outdoor forest school, and at times we have to cancel class due to inclement weather, cold temps, rain, thunderstorms. Any thoughts on how to encourage parents that we are seeking to keep their child safe when this happens? They don't want to cancel, but there are certain rules and limits they have to follow. And you find they're finding parents are really frustrated by the need to cancel, and then also the are their children going to be safe when there is this inclement weather?
So is she, sorry, I didn't quite understand. Is she a forest school
You
leader?
know, Sarah, if you are able to, I'm
Yeah,
not
I, I,
exactly.
can you hear me?
Yep, thank you, Sarah. Can
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So I am a teacher at a forest school, kind of like
Okay.
an administration type role. So like, essentially, how can we encourage parents that even though we are an outdoor forest school, we still have to follow guidelines? And
Mm,
we preach there's no such thing as bad weather,
Mm,
but the weather can still hinder us. So I guess what
okay.
are
Yeah.
your thoughts or suggestions? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So the parents actually are on board. They want their kids outside even more. Am I getting you
Correct. Yes,
correctly?
yes. And so
Okay.
they get frustrated when we have to cancel.
Okay. I think, I mean, just judging by what I've heard from other um, preschool or nature school practitioners that I've talked to, is that frequent communication with the parents is really key, and to keep that communication like throughout the school year. Usually it's the other way around, that they have to encourage parents to embrace that mindset of there's no such thing as bad weather. But this must be the first time I've heard it the other way around. That's why I was a little surprised. Um, but yeah, I think most people, I think most parents would understand that you have to follow like the regulations and just yeah, I would say just keep the lines of communication open and yeah.
Awesome. And we have, I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of the other questions because we have just 5 minutes left, but I do want to let Heather, Danny, Tiara, and Julie know. Thank you for your questions, and you will also receive a copy of Linda's book. The next question is from Heather. Heather says, I too have been offered rides when I'm and walking in the rain or snow. What's your favorite way to respond to these well-meaning people?
Oh, I usually just tell them thank you, thank you, but I really just enjoy the fresh air, and I make sure to be polite about it because they mean well, but it just doesn't land right.
When Tiara asks, do you have any advice on working with local leaders on prioritizing making the streets more walkable?
To working with communities, is that what you're?
Yeah, yeah, local
Okay.
leaders, communities. Yep.
Well, not exactly well, yeah, to some extent, yeah. In When we lived in Indiana, I was quite active in the community. It was a smaller town, and typically smaller towns are easier to be involved in because it's just you tend to know the people in charge and so on. And I was involved in uh, building a new playground. But we did talk about sidewalks as well a lot. That was a recurring recurring issue. And uh, safe routes to school. So yeah, I mean that's definitely like I definitely encourage any parent who has the bandwidth to get involved in their local community to try and make it more um, outdoor play friendly, and also, of course, to ensure safe routes to school. I think I think a lot of politicians are probably receptive, or they understand the thinking behind it. I think a lot of times it usually comes down to funding. As in my experience, we were able to raise money from companies, and I think if you have the ability to do something like that, you might have a greater chance of getting getting your ideas, seeing your ideas being realized.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. We have 2 minutes. I'm going to summarize Julie's question for a 1 minute kind of answer. And thank you so much. But Julie said she's in an opposite situation. They live in a rural area, and there's no kids around to play with her 2.5-year-old son. And so she's trying to balance not over scheduling to try to schedule the play dates, but also creating those opportunities for peer play. And do you have any suggestions for finding that balance?
Right. Well, maybe try reaching out. I mean, there are so many online groups nowadays, or ways to finding a network of people online. I mean, even if it does mean traveling a little bit to meet up with people. That's something that I did when my kids were little. Sometimes I would, if they didn't have anybody to play with locally, I would travel, and there are groups that organize gatherings. Like there are nature play groups all over the country, and so it might be a good idea to see if she could find um, if you could find one of those that you can meet up with.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I've learned so much, Linda, and so enjoyed your book. There's no such thing as bad weather. Linda is also the author of open air life. And we are so grateful for this conversation. This conversation is with Utah's Every Kid Outdoor Initiative and Linda McGurk. Appreciate you. And any final words of wisdom to wrap up, Linda?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, no, it's just going to be what I said earlier. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Just any time that you can give your child outdoors, it's a gift, and it's one that they're going to benefit from not just now, but for a long time, for the foreseeable future.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's so nice chatting with you. The
Thank
comments
you.
have been really positive. I think the conversation has really helped give people ideas and information about how to spend more time
Great.
outside. So appreciate it, Linda.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a
Yep.
good day.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
See, bye bye.
Bye.